We're an island nation, drawn to the sea that surrounds us. For many, it's a playground. For others, it's where we earn our living. But the sea's unpredictable. It can change in an instant. And when accidents happen, they happen very fast.
The sea is a dangerous place. If you don't respect the sea will bite you.
There to save our lives is a volunteer army of nearly 5,000 ordinary people, ready to leave their jobs, their families, to race to our rescue.
It makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, to know that if it wasn't for you, that person wouldn't be here.
They rescued me, but they also saved a mum, a daughter, a sister, a wife.
Oh my God.
To see someone disappear under the water right in front of you is brutal. It's absolutely horrendous.
Equipped with their own cameras,
My light flashing. Yeah, mine.
the crews give us a unique insight into every call-out as only they see it.
Right, there's another little wave.
Speeding through the roughest weather, searching for people who may only have moments to live.
Can you still hear me?
For those who risk their lives, it has become a way of life.
When those pagers go off, it's life and death.
The sandy beaches and rugged coastline of Tenby in South Wales have been drawing in tourists for over 200 years. The Victorians were content to swim and paddle, but today's visitors are more likely to push the boat out.
There's always something new, like the newest big thing that could be on the water. Obviously, we get windsurfers down here, we get surfers down here. There'll be another big thing in a minute, and that'll be something else that goes on the water that people buy, ready for the summer.
People that live here and are around it all year, they respect the sea. And many people that come on holiday are not aware of that, and they get in trouble.
A beautiful morning towards the end of the season. The Tenby lifeboat crew is paged. A 55-year-old woman has been caught in a kayaking accident. It's believed she may have sustained injuries to her back and neck.
Phil came in. He'd obviously heard what the call was. We're always urgent, but he was really urgent. It was flat calm, it was sunny, it was a lovely day, there wasn't much sea, and I remember thinking, how could you sustain those kind of injuries in those kind of conditions from a kayak?
The Tamar lifeboat is launched in under 10 minutes. The crew head to the cliffs of Stackpole Head, 10 miles down the coast.
I know where Stackpole Head is, and I can visualise, but I don't know the actual scenario she's in. I could feel the groundswell. It was a calm day, nice day, but there was a bit of heave in the water. It just starts playing on your mind, sort of, when we get there, what are you going to do? Who's doing first aid?
Anything can change. The weather could change. The wind might pick up and it might start to get choppier, which is harder to get the casualty aboard. You don't know the full detail until you get on site.
At a top speed of 25 knots, it takes nearly 20 minutes to reach the injured woman.
No two jobs are the same. It can make things difficult, because what you had last time isn't necessarily what you're going to get this time.
Stackpole Head. As the crew reach the cliffs, they find a cluster of kayaks. Lying on top of one of them is the casualty, surrounded by her friends.
The kayak sort of parted like the Red Sea, and we could see the casualty.
All right?
We went straight over to here just to make initial communications with her.
What's your name? Libby. What happened, guys?
I went too close to the rock and a wave came and pushed my left-hand thigh against the rock.
Okay.
And I felt something funny and I can't breathe very well on my left-hand side.
Okay,
I
Libby.
can move my legs, I can move my arms. But it really, really hurts down
Okay, well, you stay as still as you can, my love. My name's Jeff, and this is here to take you home, all right?
Thank you.
You could see on everyone's faces that they were all panicking for their friend. They all knew the casualty, and they were obviously all concerned for her welfare.
Okay.
I was pleased that she was talking because I thought that was a good sign. She could breathe because she was talking. She kept complaining of pain, sort of around her neck and on her back. You just feel so useless because you can't do anything and you have nothing to offer her. And I wasn't even sure that she could hear me because I think she was concentrating so much on the pain that she was in. It was difficult, it was hard.
You just tuck your arm inside so we don't get caught on anything, all right, darling?
Keep it warm.
At the time, we were suspected back injury and head injury, which is the two, worst sort of injuries you can be faced with when you're transferring casualties.
And you always go for the worst case. Always go for the worst case. Move her as little as possible and only move her when you need to.
Any bump or jolt could cause Libby further damage or even paralysis.
Thank you very much, guys.
But unless she can be lifted onto the lifeboat, she won't get the specialist medical treatment she needs.
Being that she was on the kayak, it wasn't an ideal position to be in. She obviously wasn't laid flat. The kayak didn't have many handles on it for lifting it, but to try and transport it from the kayak into a stretcher whilst being in the sea ourselves would have been a big no-go. So it was decided the best course of action was to keep her on the kayak for the time being, use that as a backboard.
We're going to put your head up first, all right? 1, 2, 3.
It takes 4 crew to lift Libby to deck level.
1, 2, 3. Okay, sorry, that's it now, that's it, on it.
She looked quite pale. She was shaking. She was just barely talking. She was obviously in a lot of pain.
All right.
With the nature of her injuries still unknown, the Coast Guard has scrambled urgent medical assistance.
Concentrate on your breathing.
The fastest way to get to hospital is via helicopter. Coxswain maintained his speed, and the paramedic from the helicopter was winched down and landed on the deck.
Okay, so what we're going to have to do, guys, I want to get a wetsuit off her completely. So once I've finished doing what I'm doing now, we'll cut down the legs, and then we're going to look at moving her. Okay, just going to feel around your back.
That's the word kayak as well, wouldn't we? Do you want me to do the legs, then you do the kayak?
Hang on, we're going to lift her up on 3, and drag the kayak at first touch, yeah? 1, 2, 3, lift. That's it, keep her in the air.
There was no way that she was going to be winched on the kayak, so it has to be their stretcher. It's a matter of getting a lot of people around her so that we can lift her in a way that is supportive and that she doesn't really move from transferring from one position in a stretcher to another.
1, 2, 3, lower. There we go. That's okay, Libby, up here.
She was in a lot of pain. You could see she was in a lot of pain.
Because you've got...
I think she was frightened. She was a brave woman, mind. She listened to us. She communicated with us.
Okay, so blanket over.
Libby's already spent more than 30 minutes in severe pain. But after her time in the water, her body temperature has dropped significantly. Airlifting her in this state would increase the likelihood of her developing hypothermia. The paramedic decides to delay taking Libby to hospital till her temperature starts to rise.
We brought one of her friends on board from her kayak just to reassure her. You want a friendly face when you're scared and in need of help.
I just kept saying, everything's going to be all right now, everything's going to be all right, and just squeezing her hand.
Let me know as soon as that winch was ready.
Finally, after 20 minutes, Libby's core temperature has begun to climb. Overhead, the Coast Guard helicopter flies into the wind at the highest speed possible to maintain stability.
Hey, the swell's going to be the most awkward thing for them.
Yeah, totally.
At the helm, coxswain Phil must match the heading and speed while keeping the lifeboat deck as steady as possible.
Okay, so that's good. That one's good. Yeah. They're good.
The helicopter's pretty stable, but the lifeboat's going up and down on the seas. Just to help the situation, we lifted Libby up to a position level with the rail. It seems like quite a snatch from the boat, and it's almost unavoidable. It's probably quite scary.
You always think, you know, what's going to happen now is, you know, is it just a bit of bruising? Is it, you know, is she just cold? Or, you know, is she, you know, generally hit? And you always hold out for the call that you're going to find out what happens, and sometimes you don't. And, you know, sometimes you do.
Libby had been in Tenby enjoying a girls' weekend with a group of friends. They'd hired kayaks for the day and had gone out with experienced instructors. As Libby took her turn to navigate a gap in the rocks, she was caught by a freak wave.
It is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, I think. The doctors told me what the state of my injuries were. When I'd broken 7 ribs, 5 of them in 2 places, so I had a total of 12 fractures. And there was one chap there whose hand I was holding really tight, and I'm sure he didn't have any fingers left by the time I'd been holding his hand because I was holding it so tight.
You feel blessed that you were there. You feel humbled that you were able to get there in time and help her, basically. She was a very strong and a tough woman. I would have made a lot more noise than she did, God love her.
I wouldn't mind going there again and just stand and watch the waves and see whether it was just a freak wave or whether I was just unlucky. But I think that the sea is just so unpredictable that you can never tell. All seamen will tell you that the sea is unpredictable. It's the nature of it.
Around the country, all volunteers attend regular training sessions to prepare for whatever the sea can throw at them. From recovering a capsize
1, 2, 3
to casualty care. But however long you've been learning the ropes, there are some events that no one can predict or plan for.
You've got to kind of switch common sense off because things aren't predictable at sea. You know, you've got the waves, you've got the wind, you've got, you know, a 30-plus ton lifeboat pitching and rolling. Common sense just doesn't go how you want it to when you're at sea.
You might think it might be a nice, easy call-out, and maybe halfway through it, something else might happen, and everything changes in a call-out. You were never guaranteed an easy call-out.
We've been known to rescue a goat down near Lynmouth that had been stuck on the cliff, and actually got an award from the Feral Goat Society for rescuing this particular goat. So any animal is a good rescue.
We were called out to Viking ship one day, just up the coast. I think it was about 5 miles up the coast. They were in difficulty, and it's the strangest thing that we'd ever gone. They were all kitted out with Viking hats and swords, and it was some kind of reenactment.
Go and get dressed.
Yeah?
Yeah. You can actually think you're going out to one job, and you can actually end up doing another job. We went out to a helicopter job last year, and we actually ended up going out to a sinking fishing boat.
Oh, for sure, it definitely makes things unpredictable. When the pagers go off, it could literally be anything.
The UK and Ireland's rocky beaches and sandy shores provide food and shelter to all manner of fur, feather and fins, both locals and tourists. In Devon, the Dart estuary sits in a deep-sided river valley, in which a grey seal colony, otters and even the occasional dolphin has made its home. But earlier this year, its biggest visitor to date made national news.
A moment that will live with a 12-year-old forever. Most people have never seen a humpback whale in the UK, so Slapton became a viewing hotspot.
20-foot humpback whales are normally found in the waters off Scandinavia or New England. But to the town's surprise, this one stayed.
I'm not sure why it was in the area at all. It just suddenly appeared and it stayed for ages. I think it just liked Dartmouth.
The crew at Dart Lifeboat Station are answering an emergency call. It's rookie volunteer Katie's third shout.
I was actually in work and about to leave, and then it went off, and then I was quickly whipped the apron off. I thought, what's going to be faster, the car or run? And I just decided to run. Chris was there already, and I said, what is it? And he said, the whale's got stuck. Couldn't believe it.
While trying to feed in the shallows of a nearby bay, the Dartmouth whales become trapped in fishing lines attached to whelk pots. Unless he can be freed quickly, he could be seriously injured or even drowned.
Will you be able to send 2 of your team up along the beach?
Right, chap. Okay. We'll reach across there, you've got some rope down here you can grab hold of.
5 miles up the coast, a team of divers specialising in marine life rescue has also been called in. The plan? To get them as close as possible to the whale so they can cut him free from the fishing lines. For the crew, it means placing the lifeboat carefully over the whale as he thrashes below and holding position.
When we got close enough to the whale rescue guys had asked that we cut the engine, and we were actually holding onto the pot, and pretty much when she came up out the water, anywhere you looked around the boat was just whale, so she seemed pretty big in comparison to our boat.
That's going straight from there onto the tail, which means that these wraps and the pots are going straight down to the bed.
Yeah, tying around here.
Already several hours into his ordeal, the whale's becoming increasingly agitated by the ropes.
You could just see it obviously coming up every kind of 3 to 5 minutes, and then it got, like the gap got smaller, so it was more every 2 minutes. You could just see netting around it really, and obviously it was very distressed.
Chris, not very much of it.
It was a fair chunk of weight for it to be towing. Of course, while it's towing it, all the buoys are, all the pots are bouncing along the bottom, getting entangled.
The whale probably weighed 15 to 20 tonnes, and our boat's about 5.5 metres.
To know that that animal could swipe you out the boat with one flick of its tail, terrifying.
I'm now on high ground, give you a call, landline.
In the small lifeboat, it's too dangerous to proceed.
We needed to come up with a better plan, which to me meant more manpower and maybe a more stable platform.
That goes right.
The fishing boat that radioed in the alarm is still in the area, so the crew take a different tack.
Cheers, guys. All right, buddy.
The new strategy: hoist the whale's tail as high as possible out of the water while a diver waits for it to rise, armed with a sharp knife.
It was a very tense few moments on the boat. Something we'd never trained for, so it was brand new situation. And I think even the marine life divers, although they had trained in whale rescue, this was the first one that they'd actually been to. On any job, but especially with animals, you don't know how they're going to react, especially in distress. Things can go wrong very, very quickly.
You nerves are jangling at that point. If a 20-ton whale decides it wants to go somewhere else, there's not a lot 9 blokes are going to do about it, unfortunately.
It felt very tense watching what was going on. It got so close each time, it got so close, and we just wanted it to happen.
It was quite an adrenaline buzz. I felt quite humbled actually being so close to help such a large animal. Go on. Everybody was pulling with all their might. The whale surfaced more and more rapidly.
The final one, we knew it had been done because it just went. It just really went.
He's there. There he is.
It felt like a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
I think any rescue is very rewarding, but this one was special, and it will always be special.
We've been on several shouts where we've saved lives or done dramatic things, and nothing's ever been said. But all of a sudden, after this shout, a lot of people have mentioned, "Oh, I heard you saved the whale."
At the most westerly point of the mainland, the cliffs of Land's End have been carved out by powerful waves, rolling in off the Atlantic Ocean. The waters here are patrolled by 2 crews, Sennen Cove and the Penlee team based in Newlyn. The area is a magnet for surfers and holidaymakers, many oblivious to the fact they're just miles from some of the busiest shipping lanes in the country.
Ships are going around there carrying all sorts, chemicals, tankers, oil.
The coastline tells its own story of how dangerous the water here can be.
The land sticks out into the Atlantic and is a corner, really foreboding. It's pole dark country, if you like.
Mainly it's granite rocks, granite cliffs, so if you get washed ashore, then only one thing will happen, is that's the boat's going to get smashed to pieces.
At 3 a.m, Penlee's 16-strong crew is paged by the Coast Guard.
I picked my best crew that turned up, picked my most experienced guys, and off we went.
8 miles away, the team at Sennen Cove is also pulled from their sleep.
Right, boys. 1, 2, 3. Turn somebody out the bed 3 o'clock in the morning, as on this occasion, and jump in the seat and be able to navigate within 10 minutes of being asleep and dreaming of a Caribbean island or something. It is a big ask.
3 miles south of Gwenap Head, a 3,500-ton coaster laden with cargo and fuel has suffered engine failure and broken down. Her anchor is no longer holding, and a strong southwesterly wind has started to push her towards the shore at a rate of a mile an hour. The 2 crews now have just 2.5 hours to stop her breaking up on the local cliffs.
I thought it felt, this is not going to be an easy job.
If a ship ends up on a piece of coast like that, he won't be getting off again.
Environmentally, it's a disaster.
Making best speed of 25 knots, both crews race to the scene.
We get on with Sennen, yeah. We've got a good relationship with Sennen, and there is a bit of friendly rivalry.
They're a right bunch down there. They're Newlyn.
We've got the bigger boat, but I expect Terry will say that he's got a better boat.
Their boat's bigger than ours, but our propeller's got 5 blades, they only got 4. When it comes to saving people's lives, what bit of friendly rivalry you might have just goes out the window when it's a job like that.
I know most of the crew, they're good as gold. Yeah, a good station.
25 minutes after launching, the two crews get their first glimpse of the job in hand. A coaster called the Lady Alida, all 3,500 tons of her.
Yeah, I was thinking we might need a bigger boat.
Because of the way the wind was, the strength of the wind, she was drifting quite quick.
In the Tenby lifeboat, Patch has come up with a plan. He wants to buy time by towing the coaster into deeper water until a tugboat can reach her and deliver her safely into port. Patch needs Terry in the S02 boat to agree.
Terry's initial reaction was he wasn't so sure whether we should or not.
We tow plenty of stuff, but we rarely tow anything that big.
I knew that we had no choice really, because there was only one way that she was going to go if we couldn't.
The Tenby and S02 volunteers agree to work together to bring the 88-metre wall of welded steel under control. Both lifeboat crews need to find a position in front of the bow so that lines can be thrown to the Alida's waiting crew. But if they get too close, their own boats could be crushed.
1 minute you're airborne, then you come down with a crash, and then you go on again. It's not a pleasant place to be when it's rough and you've got pressure on to try and get to someone who's in trouble.
Just a question of timing, really. You can feel that you're not going to make it when the ship rows up on the top of a sea. It's just waiting for it to drop back down, and when you feel happy that you can make the throw it.
Both lifeboat crews manage to throw their tow lines at the first attempt. But they still don't know if they have enough combined power to pull the ship to safety.
We started to try and turn the boat 180 degrees to get it pointing in the right direction. We wasn't even sure if we were going to be effective, whether our boat would actually even move this boat.
It's quite hard really to sort of train to tow vessels that sort of size. So, but I did have my doubts whether we'd be able to move it or not, I must admit.
Gradually, the coaster starts to turn. With both lifeboats side by side, the slow tow out to sea begins.
It took two boats, you know, we'd have struggled on our own.
When it's dark, you lose a sense of bearings as well, so you don't exactly always know which way you're going, which way is left or right, and so you just get a little bit disorientated.
It was quite easy for one lifeboat to drift away from the other one and go off at a larger angle.
Finally, after almost 3 hours, the crews reach safe deep water 5 miles offshore. The Lady Alida is able to drop anchor and wait for the tug to arrive.
It was really good, you know, the way the boats worked together. Both crews did a really good job.
There's a lot of satisfaction when you come from two opposite directions in the middle of the night and put two ropes on the ship and get it out of trouble.
As day breaks, both lifeboat crews head back to the Tenby boathouse in Newlyn.
Got back to Newlyn about 6 o'clock in the morning and was all planning what we was going to have for our fry-up.
Have a cup of tea. I think I got through about half a cup.
Another page from the Coast Guard. It's the Lady Alida. Her skipper's reporting that she's beginning to drag her anchor again. Meanwhile, the rescue tug's been delayed by bad weather. To make matters worse, the coaster is back where she started, 2.5 miles from shore and drifting inwards.
Your priority is the safety of the ship and the people on it. We did need to be back out there. You don't want to see a ship going on the rocks. I've seen a few and it's awful. They're living things. As far as I'm concerned, a boat's a living thing. And to see one go on the rocks and smash up is awful.
Once again, the two lifeboat crews must throw their tow lines on board. In the daylight, the scale of the task and of the lady leader is even clearer.
It was a fair old sized boat and she was rolling quite heavily beam on. Can we get a rope on it and can we hold her off?
People say they've never been frightened at sea. Well, they're dangerous people because we've all been frightened at sea.
For a second time, the crews begin the long tow back into deeper water.
You do get tired.
Yeah, I was a little bit jaded by that point.
Fatigue and lack of awareness are things that creep in, particularly if you're called out in the early hours when your crew will have been at work all the day before, maybe have had a couple hours sleep. That's when it's at its most dangerous. All they want to do is get home.
It takes a further 6 hours before the crews are able to rendezvous with the salvage tug brought in to retrieve the coaster.
It was a good job, you know, there's no doubt that we saved that vessel from going ashore, without doubt, so it was a good job.
When it comes to saving people's lives, you're carrying on a tradition and you're also representing your community.
Nearly 40 years ago, an earlier generation of Penly volunteers were called to the aid of another drifting coaster. It was the 19th of December 1981.
I remember it as if it was yesterday, really. I think everyone does.
They're being called to something fairly similar to what we'd had with the Lady Leader ship called the Union Star. Had difficulties, unable to manoeuvre, and was drifting ashore.
The Penly lifeboat, known as the Solomon Brown, went to her aid that night in hurricane conditions.
My dad was a tourist skipper, and he still says now that that was the worst weather that we've had. And he said there hasn't been a night as bad as that since. It was horrific.
The Solomon Brown attempted to get the crew off of the Union Star by going alongside. The actual Solomon Brown lifeboat got washed onto the deck of the Union Star. They got some of them off and went to attempt it again, and I think that's where it went horribly wrong then.
The morning after, the wreck of the Union Star was seen washed up on the cliffs. There were no survivors. The entire lifeboat crew was also lost at sea.
We drove through Maysville the next morning after we knew that the lifeboat had been lost, and it was just people lining the streets, and I think it was horrible. You could see bits of wreckage, so, you know, it was just horrible. And people, you know, it was just a nightmare.
The Mousehole Christmas lights are dimmed for an hour every year to honour the rescue that cost 8 men their lives and left 10 children without their fathers.
What you think about when you're on shout is the guys that were on the shout and that you're following in their footsteps. You just want to live up to their expectations, really, you know? You want to do the job right for them.
I think anyone that can say they've been a coxswain in the Penly lifeboat it's quite a big deal, I think.
that one, I'll take the heavy one.
Among nearly 5,000 volunteers, many serve alongside members of their own families. And it's never too early to start.
Can you point out the engine for me? All right, okay, what horsepower is it?
50.
Where's the aerial? Good stuff. Compass? Ace. Where's the quoit? Great. How many fuel tanks are there?
2.
Greg is the helm of the Conwy lifeboat. His 10-year-old daughter Jasmine is already keen to find her own sea legs.
Everything I know about boats he's taught me just built my confidence with the water and the lifeboat things.
She'll have the training and she won't be able to go afloat until she's past the skills. So, no, I should be fine with it, as long as she stays safe and looks after herself, and then obviously the others, they'll all look after her as well. I think it's a good tradition to follow, and you know, I think it must be a very proud moment when father and son or father and daughter get together and share that experience hand in hand on the front line.
The lifeboat station here is on the River Conwy, which leads onto a tidal estuary and a busy harbour where many locals dock their boats. On the surface, a tranquil setting, but looks can be deceiving.
We're very tidal, surrounded in sandbanks and local hazards, rocks and currents, so it makes it quite a challenging entrance to a harbour.
On a cold day at the end of January, a 70-year-old man has fallen into the marina and can't get out.
Somebody ends up in the water this time of year in Conwy, certainly in the estuary. They're not there through choice, they're there because there's an accident and they need help and they're in danger.
In January, water temperatures can be as low as 7 degrees. Not only is the man at risk of drowning, but hypothermia could set in within 15 minutes.
The conditions, especially that day, it was very cold. So we knew that the casualty, if they were in the water for long periods of time, they didn't have a chance.
How far are we?
I was waiting outside my house for one of my friends to pick me up to go and watch a local football game. I only live around the corner from the station, so it was about a 30-second run.
We got power on. From the shower to actually hitting the water, it was 4 minutes and 37 seconds, I think.
You can't really prepare for what you go into. The details you get given are very limited.
The harbour's within sight of the lifeboat station, but reaching the casualty quickly will still be a challenge.
The conditions in the river were quite choppy, very unusually choppy for outside the lifeboat station. There's a lot of spray coming into our face.
Once in the harbour, the crew still need to locate the man amongst up to 60 boats docked on the pontoons.
It is a complex searching area because the people could be trapped underneath the pontoon, trapped underneath the boat, trapped between boats.
Finally, the casualty comes into view.
Okay, I'll jump on.
An onlooker has managed to get a lifebelt to him.
Anything I can grab hold of?
But he's wedged in against the boat, weighed down by heavy clothing.
When we got to the casualty, he couldn't talk to us. He was unresponsive. The colour was very grey.
The 70-year-old man has now been in the water for 12 minutes, his body temperature dropping rapidly.
Lose this life, boy. See if we can bring him up.
Greg decides to get one of his crew in alongside to help keep him conscious.
Okay. Need an ambulance.
As soon as I jumped in the water, I could feel the cold straight away. It hit me, and I was in shock. But I knew I had to grab him, so he didn't just give up and let go.
lose this life, boy. See if we can bring him up.
There's a lot of pressure on my shoulders, and the decisions I make could be life or death, certainly for the casualty. So I don't want to be getting it wrong.
Immediate ambulance, Greg, on the
The casualty was a dead weight, a heavy lift out because he was wet. But also it was the angle of us trying to pull him out because we were over the side of a pontoon.
Finally, with the help of an onlooker, the crew are able to heave the man clear of the water. Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
His muscles had all stopped working. He was lifeless.
We'll get you on the lifeboat and we'll get you somewhere warm quick as we can. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and then get in the boat.
I think he was quietly slipping away.
Get on the train as fast as we can.
A lot of people, when they see the orange, they think help's got there. They can now give up because they're going to be okay. For the casualty, that was not the case because hypothermia had kicked in.
The crew's biggest concern is to keep the man conscious. If he falls asleep, his whole body could start shutting down.
Dave, can you still hear me?
He's still there.
Dave, keep talking to me, okay? Straight out, talking to me.
Get the rope on, get the rope on.
I was very conscious of shouting at the casualty and keeping a good, strong grip of him. But I was also trying to drive the boat back to the slipway as well.
Dave, keep talking to me.
It was very scary.
Okay.
No, I think he was very close to death.
Hey, got anything from the station? Dave. All right, should be an ambulance coming to us straight away. Okay, you feeling really cold? Yeah, do you know your name?
It was important that we kept on talking to him, engaging with him to keep the casualty awake.
Good lad, Dave. How old are you, Dave? 7, really? So you're not going to give up?
What are you doing swimming this time of day?
Right, kid's name, Dave? Shonhead. Oh, very good. How old's Shonhead? Again, what's the name of that granddaughter of yours?
By talking about his family, the casualty knows he's got something to fight for.
All right, Dave, keep going. We're just going to get into the boathouse now. We're backing into the boathouse, getting out of the wind. Okay, so it should be a little warmer in here now. Okay, Dave, keep on talking, mate. Please tell me.
The crew have reached the warm shelter of the lifeboat house and the paramedics are on their way.
Ambulance on the top of the bridge is coming through the day. Minutes.
Dave, don't go to sleep, all right? It's important you don't go to sleep. All right, you with me on that programme? Good lad, well done.
Hello, Venus is Holyhead Coast Guard. Can I have a sit rep on the casualty's condition, please? Over.
We're on the edge, we're on the edge.
Less than 8 minutes after they plucked him from the water, the Conwy crew hand the casualty over to the care of the paramedics.
He hasn't lost consciousness. When we got there, he was very unresponsive. He's picking up a bit now, he's opened his eyes, talking a little bit better.
Closer.
Do you reckon you can stand, Dave? If we stand you up? If we hold you? Okay, can you... His hand moving this way.
It's dead weight, hey guys.
I was very worried. Nobody likes to come across that and see that and feel that experience of somebody slipping away in front of your eyes.
When the ambulance went, we didn't really know what the outcome of that patient was going to be. It was on my mind for a while after the call out what had happened to the casualty.
I mean, I did sort of contemplate what it'd be like just to let your eyes, just to close your eyes. But the only thing you've got to do is hang on to that flipping rope for life.
David is a retired engineer with 2 children and 5 grandchildren. He'd been trying to step onto his own boat when he lost his footing and fell into the harbour.
While I was hanging onto the rope, hoping that the lifeboat would arrive, and you're thinking all the time, any time now, But when I saw it, just in the right-hand side, and I still had my glasses on, I just saw an orange flash go past. That was the point in time when I knew, God, that somebody's here to help.
How lucky was David? Scale to 1 to 10, probably about 11. His angels were definitely around him that day.
It was amazing to me to think that only 4 or 5 hours ago, I was dicing with the idea of, will I die or will I get out of here? To about 4 or 5 hours later, maybe 6 hours later, thinking, I wonder what we're going to have for tea.
Shoreham by Sea, on the south coast, was once a small fishing port. These days, visitors to the beach can enjoy a gentler seaside experience than the one up the road in busy Brighton. Since 2006, Shoreham's Shingle Beach has been designated a nature reserve for its unique vegetation. The local crew are used to dealing with most of the challenges the English Channel can throw at them.
We like to think that we're prepared for everything here at Shoreham, and most of the time we are.
On a mild afternoon at the end of March, the Coast Guard has paged for assistance after receiving 999 calls from worried members of the public.
I had no idea what I was coming to when I got into the station. It was only once I come up and met some of the crew that were assembled that they informed me that there was an aircraft had come down into the sea. I think a plane was the last thing I expected. I just thought it would be possibly a tow-in or something like that. I wasn't expecting a plane at all.
An aircraft has suffered engine failure and crash-landed in the sea en route to Shoreham Airport. The crew have been told that the passengers were seen climbing onto the wings before jumping into the water and swimming safely to shore. But the abandoned plane is still a danger.
It was necessary to go and find the plane because it was now afloat and drifting out to sea, and therefore could become a hazard to shipping and navigation.
On top of that, the crew have no idea if it's leaking fuel into the water.
If it's up that right way. When it went down, it was. Running a lot of water.
The plane went down 2 miles away, just off Lancing Beach.
The aircraft is just out of our position. Oh, is it?
Making your way down there, you could have blinked and you could have missed. If you didn't know there was a plane there, you wouldn't have known it.
I can't see any pollution.
There's no fuel spillage to contain, but the crew do have to work out how to get a 35-foot plane weighing 3/4 of a tonne back to dry land.
Does he want us to try and tow it in? Because it's...
What is it?
It's floating.
What's this call sign?
I don't know. 08 Delta.
My concerns was what we're going to do with it, and how do you get a plane out of the water?
Go on, mate. There's the wings there.
Yeah, but
the tail fins here.
If you get a line around it, it'll hook on that little bit there.
Yeah. Believe me, that bit's quite strong.
We just had to be cautious and not rush.
It's not something that happens every day, is it? You get the chance to tow an aircraft.
Nice and slow. OK, weight's just about to come on, mate. She's going, she's all right.
Lifeboats weren't really designed to pull planes, and planes weren't really designed to travel through the sea.
Power wasn't an issue, it was more slow and steady. It's definitely the first time I've towed a plane. Done the odd jet ski and boat, but nothing like a plane.
Not with a lifeboat.
Yeah, we're pretty tight now, half a metre.
Once in shallower water, Mark and I were able to get out of the boat. The water was just over knee deep, and we could physically get hold of the aeroplane. The wheels by this time were touching the ground.
After 10 minutes, with the help of an outgoing tide, the plane taxis onto the beach, where a 3-strong team of Coast Guards lend some extra muscle.
That's it. Keep it going, 'cause we've got a bit of soft sand here.
It's not every day you see a plane being dragged up the beach by an ILB crew, so yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it raised a few smiles.
I expect at least a free breakfast down the airport, won't you?
The aircraft looked pretty good considering what had happened. There was very little damage to it.
I think the crew of the plane were extremely lucky. I don't know how he managed to do it, land it how he did, because he was neatest from the shingled beach. Must have been a textbook landing, I think.
It looked as if it could just be refuelled and fly again.
Can't say I'd want to go back up on that plane after it's been in the sea, though. It was sort of like, oh, I've just pulled a plane from the water.
That worked perfect. That was absolutely perfect. Well done, lads.
200 miles down the south coast, Salcombe in Devon is a fishing village that's become a hotspot for well-heeled holidaymakers. The lifeboat crew are used to dealing with emergency calls from the great and the good.
It's a mix. Out on the sea, it could be the £100 boatman, or it could be the £1 million super yacht. You don't know who they are.
But it's the first day of April. The tourist season has barely kicked off, and a call's already come in.
We thought it was all April Fools, but it was after midday and he assured us it wasn't.
Just 2 weeks after its whelk pot emergency, the Dartmouth whale has returned, and it's entangled in fishing lines again. This time, the Salcombe crew are paged to save the local Leviathan.
The whale was up in Blackpool Sands again, so it's about 25 minutes, 30 minutes steam up there. There's not really an awful lot you can do on the boat in preparation because you don't know what you're going to come across.
Southern Coast Guard, Dart and Lifeboat, whatever.
Marine life rescue officers have also been recalled, along with 2 members of the Dart lifeboat crew.
I know very little about whales. I've seen one in the Natural History Museum, but other than that, I've never really been up close to a whale.
The whale could still move, probably 25-metre radius, I suppose. It was still quite an area, so we had lookouts on the bow. Chris was as high as possible to get a good view when we came in.
This time the Dartmouth whale's in even more trouble. He's enmeshed in more lines than before, and there's a danger the enormous weight of the whelk pots will drag him down.
The whale was well and truly entangled. I think there were various lines around the tail, and then her other fins and around the body.
It was pulling it around like you wouldn't believe it. I mean, you just can't get over how strong an animal like that is, even in a slightly weakened state.
It's amazing how the whale managed to swim and survive with that amount of gear on it. It was extremely worn out, and that became more apparent the closer it got to us, because there were periods of time where it just laid in the water doing nothing.
When it was coming to the surface and blowing, it was almost like a scream. It was a bit eerie, really.
Last time, a marine diver had to hang out of a boat to cut the whale free. But the Salcombe team have a heavy-duty winch at their disposal. Today's plan, to hoist the tangled rope up and out of the water, while a diver on a second boat comes alongside to cut the whale free.
You've got to treat it like it's something you'd normally do. So the things we'd normally do is pull an anchor up or something like that. So it's the same operation, it's just a different context.
once we were committed to hauling the whale and we had to keep on going, we couldn't risk the lines parting off from the whale and the whale swimming away still attached to gear. If it did, it would have died. There's no two ways about it.
Marine divers have more than 20 tangled lines to hack through.
The boat could be looking up to the east 1 minute and then down to the west the next. You know, we really were being pulled around because the whale had such power. I mean, in exercises, we can tow the lifeboat with the smaller lifeboat, and it's quite a challenge. But the whale was pulling it around with ease. It was amazing the amount of power it had.
I thought, oh my God, it's too late. You know, it's had it.
Finally, after more than an hour, freedom.
Absolutely unforgettable moment. Where else are you ever going to get the experience to be there and have a humpback whale that needs rescuing? So yeah, what a great job, yeah.
No, we're not expecting to see it for a third time. Touch wood.
I'm pretty sure the collection tin the next day was a bit heavier after people had found out about it. I have to lift it in at the end of the day, and yeah, definitely heavier.
Six months after her kayaking accident, Libby's back on her feet. She and her group of friends are weighing up what activity to try out next.
We have joked that we'll be doing something a little less adventurous. Crocheting. Spa weekend might be a better idea.
You try and grab where I'm grabbing.
Falling into Conwy Harbour hasn't put David off taking his boat out. He and his partner Susan are planning to spend the summer at sea.
We like dabbling about on the water, sort of living on the water in that sense.
Take the paper with us and some sandwiches and that.
Make a pot of tea.
He'll be all right now. He'll have a bit more common sense this time.
As for the Dartmouth whale, he's expected to make a good recovery.
We saw the whale swimming freely again, and that was about 3 days later. And that's how you want to see them, not all caught up.
We have to go into danger to get somebody out of that danger.
You're thinking to yourself, right, what if? Your concern is falling in the water between both boats.
First information was a guy was in a sailing boat sailing to America.
At sea, if you don't give it any respect, it'll kill you.